You don't want them problems. You really don't want them.
He false advertising. Wait.
I'm not false advertising. I'm in Scorpio.
He like, I am though.
I am Scorpio.
I am available. No one will kill you.
I like R&B.
All right, we're getting ready to go in the air.
Yeah, old school R&B too. I love it.
Coming up in 3, 2, 1.
Ladies and gentlemen, what is going on in the city of Chicago? It is 2 minutes past the hour, and you are tuned in to Real Talk with Donte Chase Bridges on UBM. Give it up to everybody. Come on. And I want a real clap this time. All right. That's a real clap.
You called me last time when I was hungry.
All right. I am Donte Chase Bridges, along with my co-host. State your name, brother.
Steven, City P. Watson. What's going on?
It's not much. And today, this Tuesday afternoon, this is where you need to be to get your news. Man, we got a slapper of a topic coming on, man. I think this is something that everybody needs to understand because we deal with this dilemma all the time. Every single day you wake up as a black man, and every single day you wake up with a black woman. You deal with this topic. So we're going to really dive in deep with that. But before we do that, we got to get into some community business. This is where we put the spotlight on everybody that's up and coming, that has something going on with themselves. So we're going to just swing it over to Steven. You got somebody in mind?
Well, like I said, as usual, we also shout out our brother in the podcast business, our none other than Troy Simpson. His podcast is called the Weirdo League Podcast. You catch it on Anchor app every week on a weekly basis. He sporadically comes in with an episode, but it's weekly. So be sure to check out Weirdo League Podcast.
That was great, and we really want y'all to check it out, man. Just understand the movement that we got going on. It's a lot of up-and-coming black talent out here, and it's diverse. It's not only in media, it's in entertainment, it can be in business, it can be in real estate. So just be on the lookout for these things.
Yes, sir.
Now I have somebody that I want to bring up.
Go ahead.
Now I would just talk about this person, but that would be a little weird since she's to my dead right.
Literally sitting right here.
The brand consultant, the web designer. Look at the design she got on right now. None other. Kim Brio in the building. What's going on, Miss
I'm
lady?
back, y'all. Thank y'all for having me. I'm so glad to be back.
No problem.
Y'all needed some estrogen in the room again.
And you intimidated Steve. So
I did.
we decided that we was gonna bring you back.
See?
Well, we
See,
shout
that-
out why you gotta say that I'm into it?
Cause, I mean, you was a little bit a couple times.
It wasn't
A couple
intimidation,
times,
it
you
was because of
was a
heat.
few times.
It was because of the heat. It was
Listen,
hot.
he is popping in the streets. Okay?
Listen. Well, what we
Popping
want you
in
to
the
do
streets.
real quick before we pop. I need you to talk a little bit about yourself. Tell everybody what you got going on right now.
Okay, everybody. I am Kim Brio. Introduced myself last week. Entrepreneur, consultant, personality, and queen. I always throw that on because
Queen.
I like to remind people, that I'm like royal and stuff.
You don't
I do web and graphic design. Is what I started off doing. I segued into brand strategy, and that's what I do. So you can check my stuff on kimbrio.com. So go check it out. And I am Kim Brio on social media, and that way you know all about me.
And that there.
And it's still hot.
And that there.
And it's
Check
still
out
hot.
the fan work. Check out
It's
the fan
still
work.
hot.
Came in here looking like
listen,
Milan.
listen, y'all wasn't gonna get me again and have me up in here.
It's color purple
Sweating
all
and
over
listen,
again.
I'm trying to tell you. Well, it got sequins on it. So can I have a little?
She got a bedazzle fan, and
I'm
I'm
trying to
okay
tell
with
you.
it
I'm
because I'm
trying to
getting a
tell
little
you.
that air
Easy,
too.
that's I ain't getting none, so it don't matter.
there
There
you
you
go.
go. See it? Okay, there you go.
Steven City P, you got somebody else in mind you want to shout out?
Shout out to a good young man of ours that we've had the pleasure of having on our podcast before, young JMC.
Yes.
He's a rapper, he's a coming rapper. He's also a DJ. I got to get his business cards. I was supposed to get some business cards for him too. But he's also available on Facebook, Jeremy Williams on Facebook.
Now, do he got some new music coming out?
He actually does have a new single. He has a compilation with a couple of other artists out there. He has a single that just came out. When I get a chance, we will gladly show you guys next time around on the Brothers Podcast what that single is.
All right.
Yes.
Anticipation.
JMC in the building.
Yes.
I actually want to give a shout out to all of us because if you're liking what we're saying, if you're understanding the content, and if you want more of the content, what I need you to do is, number one, tune in. Number two, hit that like button. Let us know that you appreciate it. And number three, just a little bit more, share that to somebody else you know.
Yes.
Get the name out here, all right, people?
Don't be stingy. Share the wealth.
Share the
Right.
wealth. Share them likes. Come on now, people.
We take food donations too.
I don't know what he's talking about.
We take food donations. We take.
I take food donations.
Yeah, thank you.
It's-
We take
it's-
food
He
Oh,
ain't
so
gotta
I'm
take
just-
them, but I take the
I'm
food.
We'll
just
take
lonely.
plate. You know.
Now wait a minute, you can't eat everybody's spaghetti out here.
No, we cannot.
So you
but
just
we,
gonna take a plate of potatoes
but
out.
we can eat everybody fried chicken though, so that's all.
You can't. Some people don't cook it all the way to the
How
bottom.
about just take us out to eat?
There
How
you
about
go.
that? That's the safest.
Take us
bet.
out.
That's the safest.
We
bet.
love Cooper's Hawks too.
He's naming
you
off the
just so
restaurants.
sedity
Listen,
now. Look.
listen, if it's a
You-
lady
you
out
know
there,
what?
he is giving you all the hints. He
Look.
is like, listen, I like this, I want to do this, I want to go here.
Let me tell you something. Let me tell you something before we get started.
Ever
okay?
since you got your
I
license,
got a testimony.
Ever
Hold
since
on,
you
hold
got
on.
your license reinstated, you been getting all that.
Let me tell you something. Before we start with this thing, let me tell you something, okay? Earlier this year, first time ever in my life, I was blessed with the opportunity of going to Cooper's Hawks restaurant. Okay? I have officially been spoiled rotten because this is ridiculous. I don't know what they put in the food. I don't know what kind of wine. They got their own wine.
This brother got a wine cellar.
I got a wine cellar. I like, look, I told everybody, like, look, my birthday's coming up too, November 1st.
Listen.
Record. So if you want to give me a gift, Cooper's Hawks wine, romance
You got
red
30
or
seconds
sweet,
for this plug.
romance
I swear to
red
God.
or sweet red. If you want to give me something, I
I
appreciate
don't know
that.
how to turn this
I don't
into
even know
wish
how-
list.
yeah.
I'm not
Or
sure.
you know, if you want to take me out to dinner to Cooper's Hawks, I also welcome that too.
Give it up for Stephen City P. Gigolo in the building. He is
Seriously, he gonna drop his cash out.
On the real.
Pimpin' ain't easy, though. Pimpin' ain't
Stephen City P.
easy.
You can drop 35 on November 1st,
Ha!
2018. Well,
Ah!
speaking of that, did you just drop it on the?
Yeah,
Oh,
I said
man.
drop it.
I'm not. I
You
can't.
did that.
I can't. I have to pull the fan out.
You know what? You are acting ridiculous, and that's going to be a great segue into our topic of the day. Fan a little bit more because you need to know.
Oh,
that
Lord.
it's going to get a little heated up in
It's
here.
gonna get real. It's about to get real.
Why are you fanning this?
Because I'm hot too.
You are hot.
Thank you kindly.
You know
Okay.
what, Steven?
You're not even helping me.
I'm gonna be honest. I don't like your wrist movement right now, bro.
I don't like it either, but something gotta be done. Look, hey, I don't like it either, but something gotta be done. Okay.
Steven, you are charming right now. You are just a bedazzled.
I'm an on-air personality.
You got your eyeglasses on, not on your eyes, but it's cool.
Oh my goodness.
You want to put them on my eyes?
That's
I'll
what I
do
gotta
it.
deal with. Y'all see.
It's
I do
all
it.
right.
Hold up. Let's go.
Let's do this. Tonight,
All right.
we are getting into, or should I say afternoon,
Yeah.
we are going to get into a very important topic. So let's just switch gears a little bit. Because tonight to afternoon, whenever this is, whether it be Eastern, Mountain Time, or Pacific Time, we are going to dive into the discussion of black men are unemployed in Chicago. Why is this? It's going to be a deeper look into the economic plight of the African American man, specifically dealing in the city of Chicago. And I know we all got our questions. I know we all got a lot of answers. But right now we got a bunch of intelligent, educated black people up here. And I want to get some good answers and also some solutions. So, you ready, City P?
I'm always ready, am I?
Miss Kimbo.
I'm
Did I call her
ready.
Kimbo?
He called me Kimbo.
Miss
I'm
Kimbo.
ready.
Oh.
Actually, that's one of my family nicknames, Kimbo. So
Kimbo?
that's cool. Yeah.
Miss Kimbo Slice. You
You're not
ready?
fighting,
I'm
not fighting
ready.
nobody.
Let's go.
All right, you about to go into a brawl.
Let's go.
Let's open this up. Now, what I want to ask you, Miss Kimbria, what do you feel is the cause of this economic collapse dealing with the African American male in Chicago?
I think there are two sides to the coin. It's never just one reason, in my opinion, right? So I think the obvious first side is systematically, it's not easy for you guys. And I actually touched on this last episode. We were on a whole different subject, but the opportunities for young men are not as abundant,
Because it blends in.
you know, as those for young women. So I will definitely say the system in multiple ways. There's not businesses in your areas to work at. So if there's no businesses to work at and you have no money and no transportation to get somewhere, like, you know what I mean? Like system, let's just say. But the other side of it that I don't want us to ignore is drive.
Oh, but before we get into that, because it might be some scrapping going on, let me ask
Just a
you
little
question.
bit.
So,
Scrap?
we talking about, all right now, after the show, we talking
I got
about
money on her.
Chicago. You should, you know, don't put it on me. We talking about Chicago, one of the third leading metropolitan cities in the United States, economically booming. Well, besides that little budget that we've been talking about with Ronner.
What budget? We got one of them.
We don't
It's a
have one of
budget.
those.
Exactly.
Did they pass it?
Did
No.
we?
You gotta have a budget to call it a budget.
See, the fact that we don't even know is an issue.
Exactly. So, but you're dealing with a metropolitan city that is supposedly and allegedly having all these opportunities for our people out here. What is one of the reasons? Sorry, we had a little technical difficulty. I think there's a fire outside. It's something
It
Everything
happening.
made
just
me
stopped
nervous
like
because
that.
when you see a lot of black people run, you automatically want to run.
Exactly.
Because
Right.
If they ran, I might need to run too.
Right, I'm already scoping out where exactly.
We had to suppress all our black instincts. in
Yeah,
this
we
one
We
moment.
got really,
I
we
just
got
want y'all to
really,
know.
we got really alert.
I was like, wait a minute,
Order.
hold on.
We got really alert
That's
at
all
that
right.
one moment. It was
we
like,
gonna keep it
We're
going.
gonna keep it moving. We're gonna keep it moving.
Now, if we start burning up in here, y'all understand that we tried our best to give y'all
Let's send an
entertainment.
ambulance.
Right.
Yeah, and send an
Send an
ambulance.
ambulance.
right, send an ambulance.
So let's get back on this, man. So you're doing Chicago, biggest metropolitan and booming city, well, the third biggest. Why, and what would you say to the black people or just people in general when they say, how is there not economic opportunity in a city like Chicago? Especially for black men.
There's segregation in Chicago.
Speak on it.
There's segregation in Chicago, and that is key. Now, if all of the city looked like downtown where they go and they travel and they do their touristy things, then we wouldn't have a problem with that.
Preach.
But with the issue of segregation, again, there's not much in the community. So then if there's no businesses in the community for them to work at, they have to then leave the community to find employment. And quite frankly, that's another barrier. Everybody can't do that. Everybody doesn't have the means to do that, or to get downtown to Navy Pier every day, or to get downtown to go work at the Starbucks downtown because there is one or two on the south side.
So-
I mean, you know what I'm saying? I'm just gonna call it what it is.
So you feel that although it's economic opportunity, it is economic opportunity for the lighter hue of people instead of the African American males.
I will say.
Speak on it. Now you got a lighter
yes,
on. Say it
yes,
with your chest.
Yes, say it with my chest.
Is it nice?
No, I'm gonna say, he's saying the ones that lack a little melanin in their
Right.
system is what he's saying.
Right.
I will say that has something to do with it, but it also has to do, and we cannot ignore the other side of the coin of that, which is class.
Mm.
More than racism, they don't have to instill a lot of racism because they've instilled this classism here. So because there's a certain class of people, we can't get past certain areas. They don't have to instill racism. They just say, if you don't make this much money, or you don't have this, or you don't have these means, then that's it.
I love where you're going with that. City P, won't you speak on that a little bit?
She actually hit it right there. It's like, there's the top part is classism. Racism is just a spec, it's just a mechanism of classism in a lot of ways. It's just a division tactic. It's also, I believe, there's also education. There's not a lot of young, educated black men out there that are using their knowledge that they've acquired to further advance themselves in the system.
Right.
So, let's say, for instance, not just because nowadays we just had a conversation with a group of young men I've known for quite some time. It's getting to a point now, and even in the corporate world, that you don't even require a college education or degree to even get a job. in an
So,
entry-level
let me ask you a
position.
question. So what part of the education system you feel that is lacking for the black man in order to succeed? Because, and the reason why I ask you that is because are you talking about when he goes through secondary school, like college, or you saying all the way starting from kindergarten to 8th grade?
I think it's more so the lacking of the education to be self-sufficient at times, because you can't be exactly that, as you said, drive.
Wait a minute now.
As I say, the drive. You have to be able to understand that even when the market is not working for you, you have to be able to work for yourself. And I think that a lot of young black men are not educated on how exactly to do that, and that's where the market is starting to go down for us. It's crashing hard. And sometimes it's as simple as going online and doing some research, or going to a library, go pick up the books. That drive's not there to do that anymore.
Can I ask you a question? Can I ask
You
you?
probably about to
She's
know where I'm
bouncing
about
the
to go,
seat.
'cause I'd like
Let me
my
ask
answer.
you. No,
bouncing
I
the
think I'm gonna
seat.
go a little different.
Okay.
Let me ask you a question. What's your name, Sassy or City P? Because
You ever
wrist
call me-
action.
if you ever-
it was the way you was doing it.
If you ever
City
in
P,
your
right?
life call me sassy again,
Sassy P.
This might be the last episode you ever do, yo.
We come back from commercial.
This fight that's about to happen.
This might be the
It's about
last
to go
episode of
down.
Real Talk with Donte Chase
Welcome to
Bridges.
Real Talk
because-
with Donte Chase Bridges.
Yeah. So, because if we go to black, then you just know what happened. I am so sorry. I did not.
Let's
want
get
that.
back on subject. Now, my question to you is, and you said something that was very important, and I also agree with you. I'm gonna piggyback, but I'm gonna veer to the left a little bit. So, you said that it's easy not to get into the education system, but in order to get the tools, the resources, like going on the internet and actually finding out how to do specific things for yourself in order to be self-sufficient, right?
Mhm.
So, what would you say to the people that don't even have the money in order to have internet? Don't even have the community centers in order to go and get on a computer to find a job? Don't even have the ability to talk to someone that'll stir them in the direction or steer them in a direction that would allow them to access these things? Because one thing that you have to have, you gotta have a guide. I mean, all of us came out the womb, but all of us didn't have the tutelage, the knowledge, and that role model, or a father or a mother figure, whoever it was, to tell us to go in a specific direction. What would you say to that person who's trying to get ahead?
I would definitely say that this is a really hard question to give somebody. It's a really hard answer to give
That's
somebody.
what I do.
I see that. Because you're taking away basically any and all opportunity for them to have to strive, and they have to start basically from the ground up. I would say you have, like you said, once again, we have to go back to drive. How badly do you want to succeed?
I'm gonna cut you off right there. But the reason I'm gonna cut you off is because I'm gonna swing to the right because somebody whispered drive, and I want to know exactly what you mean by this.
I mean, I think that it all goes back to drive, because even in the question that you just asked, and you said, what happens when they don't have community centers? And what happens when they don't have someone telling them something? Every neighborhood has a library.
Mm.
Go to 95th and Halsted and go to the library.
Mm.
Go to your church and go to the library. Go to the neighbor next door and ask to use the computer.
Go to the
Okay.
neighbor next door.
So, and I'm saying that to say, you have to have that drive in order to move yourself to the next level when you are on ground zero. When you don't have anything else, you have to be able to bootstrap. That's like a business term that we often use, and the concept of bootstrapping in business is pretty much taking nothing and using what you got to build a little something up and then taking that. So with
Now,
that being said,
not to cut you off,
got to have drive.
But I would like to say this. Now, you brought up a business term, bootstrapping.
Okay.
Now, what I would challenge you to think about is,
Okay.
what happens when you are not the person that's putting on the boots in order to fulfill your purpose or fulfill your career? You're the actual boots that the system is using in order to further their agenda, like Hyde Park, like taking all of the real estate out of where we at Brownsville right now for regentrification. You are the actual boot. You're not even the straps. Matter of fact, you're not the boots. You're the soul, the foundation to all the demographics that build upon themselves. And with that being said, we're going to take a quick, and I do mean quick little break. This is Real Talk with
Stop
Donte Chase Bridges, and I will see you in a second.
Stop right the tracks. It's like,
Like, ah!
I just want to know.
I got a moderator, bro.
I know, it's like stop the right.
I gotta ask them why they ran like that. And maybe
Right.
I was gonna
So
die.
y'all okay?
Say it black.
I thought we said something wrong. I
They
was waiting for
recording
the
here
door
like-
to fly open. I didn't know what.
Like we record and we shoot it and say, oh, gotta go. Like,
Gotta go. All right.
He said something messed up their funding money.
I'm serious. I was waiting for the door to open. Like, no, y'all gotta leave.
I didn't know what they were.
Boots after 20.
How y'all feeling out there, man? Are y'all enjoying the show?
There we go.
Hope y'all are.
I'm living in there, but y'all gotta understand.
On the job, on the beach, for your smartphones and tablets,
How y'all
Android
run?
or Apple.
Oh,
We got you.
girl.
Yeah, we was like wondering, like, hold on, what happened?
The table and the garbage can are in a big old boom.
Check out.
Y'all ain't hear it?
Yeah, we heard
I didn't
something.
hear the boom. I just saw y'all take off, and I was like,
He was like,
we was like, should we run too? Since all the other black people.
like we was gonna,
Okay.
like this shows up get cut off real quick. Like, whoa, hold on, what's going on right here? Cool.
Like they was dead there. We didn't know. We thought we was gonna die.
We're open 24/7. We service your audio needs. All for $40 per hour, including the engineering. Get an innovative call at 773-516.
Peekaboo. Peekaboo. Smile.
Or you wanna
Come
bring
on,
it?
smile. Oh, honey, he's still not smiling.
Maybe he's not a smiler.
You tell people
Yeah.
like don't
Maybe
call
he's
you around
just
certain
not a
times,
happy
you know,
baby.
just treating you-
Maybe he's just being a boy.
So
You
it
know
puts
how
you on
boys
your
are.
Facebook Live.
Or
that's
maybe
their
he's teething.
Yeah, go
Oh,
Facebook-
poor baby.
Facebook Live.
I think his gums
Really?
hurt.
I just got off
Maybe
my phone
he's just
with my
tired.
Or maybe his tummy hurts. He didn't eat that much.
Maybe he's not ticklish.
You think maybe he's scared of the dog?
Maybe he'll outgrow it. Maybe it's a phase. Maybe he just doesn't like smiling.
Maybe.
It's cool, Marvin.
He
I
has
know,
autism.
Marvin, I'm reading your comment and
We
I'm
can
gonna,
definitely do
I'm gonna
something to help.
Let them know and read that
Maybe
statement.
is all you
I hear
need to
Marvin.
find out more about autism.
Marvin's
No
nose.
big, joyful smiles
I'm not
at 6
saying-
months is wonderfully signed. Learn the others at autismspeaks.org/sign.
I'm getting studio, man. I got
Since I have to deal with.
I don't understand why nobody don't act like they don't
No,
mess
And
with
it can
Drake.
make a lifetime
I
difference.
act like y'all don't never mess with Drake.
Drake is the greatest MC of all time.
I love Drake.
Yeah, I said it.
I ain't got no comment to that. Yeah, look. People, everybody.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is 22 minutes past the hour, and you are tuned in to Real Talk with Donte Chase Bridges.
You just gave us a Kanye moment just a second ago. Can you repeat what you just said?
What did I say?
You just said something. What you said about Drake?
What show is this called? This is talking about black men in Chicago.
But it's also about real talk. You was just trying to give us some real talk for out of your heart, didn't you?
Now, what was I saying?
You said real talk. You said real talk. Drake was the greatest MC of our generation.
I can't believe you just.
You said that.
People gonna know I said that. I've been ashamed for years of that.
You said
And
that.
you gonna bring this on? I can't.
Hey,
believe
they
it.
laughing on my thing. They
Yeah.
laughing at you.
You
But they laughing on
But
my
it's
thing.
real. But you kept it. But it's real talk, bro. You gotta keep it
Let's
real.
Let's get back to the subject. It's Real Talk with Donte Chase Bridges. Omit the last 3 minutes, cause please. Drake is good, all right. But anyway,
Drake is good.
Drake is that dude. I don't care what nobody say. I ain't shamed no more. I'm coming out with my secret. Drake is the no, not see.
Whoa.
Okay, let's
I wish y'all were in the studio to see the face.
Oh,
of
no.
Me and Steven was
I like whoa.
Okay, sassy wrist. You ain't got nothing to say. You been fanning that.
Whoa.
Like your name is
Hey,
Ellen
don't,
Davis.
hey, don't project onto me, bro. Don't project on me.
I gotta protect
I'm
somewhere.
gonna pull my fan out.
Don't project on
None
me.
of my business.
Law of thermodynamics. I gotta transfer this energy.
None of my business.
You fanning like her, but you talking about me.
Jesus.
Anyway, let's get back to the subject. Actually, let's dive a little bit deeper because we had a comment from one of our listeners, and they were talking about how classism has transferred into the educational system. And I just want to get a little detail about it from my man City P over here, man. Could you speak on that a little bit, bro?
I think I get what he's saying because classism has spilled into the educational system. I mean, look how the Chicago public schools is operating. How many Chicago public schools have been shut down over the course of the last 2 years? How many more private schools are now getting better funding? How many more students who can't afford to go to those private schools are not going to be able, are now being crammed, jam-packed, and packed into the other public schools that are still remaining? Now you get to fit 30 to 35 kids in a classroom, while a private school can have like 10 to 15 kids in a classroom, and all of them can get equal opportunity, equal attention to be educated well.
Now, what that sounds like to me is more of economics than classism.
But,
Yeah.
but how are those completely independent?
Well, it's not completely independent, but they both have little modules you have to speak on. So when you're dealing with classism, you're dealing with a caste system, okay? And when you're dealing with caste systems, you're dealing with setting the workers here, setting the aristocrats here, and then setting the higher ups up here. So what I think they were alluding to is the fact that the educational system is creating an aura of, we're not going to teach you enough to get into higher class society. But what we will do is teach you enough to stay in the working class society so that you can benefit the aristocrats and the higher ups. I'll give you an example. So, do you know who funded this actual education system? Now, if no one really understands this, before the 20th century, this education system that we had now didn't actually exist. I mean, going to class every day, and if you didn't go, there was government violations. That never really existed. That came along with John D. Rockefeller and Henry Ford. Everybody know who Ford is?
Yes. Ford Motors.
I'm riding it right now. I'm in my Ford Taurus right
Ford
now trying
Motors.
to get it. Okay? So that came around that time. And what they did, instead of having Independent education systems,
Okay.
they had what you call compensatory education systems. And what that did was mandate that you need to go to school and learn a specific curriculum. And the specific curriculum was not about higher education. It was not about enlightenment. It was not about knowledge. What it was to train the people that were in the working class, which was basically 90% of all of us, train them in order to transition from school to the assembly line. Because around this time we were dealing with new manufacturing companies that was popping up. The United States was becoming more industrious instead of agriculture. Because now we're talking about the shift of slavery going into the industrialization, which was one of the reasons why slavery weaned off, because slavery still exists. Because if you look in the 13th Amendment, that's what it's saying. Did anybody know that slavery is still legal in the United States of America?
And so what is that, ready to the workforce right about now?
Well, not necessarily the workforce, but close to it. Slavery is...
Prison system?
Exactly.
No, that's what next, yes.
And this is something that Kanye West tried to talk about. He said that
It's just
you
his
see,
delivery.
it's his delivery is terrible.
But it makes sense when you
Exactly.
listen to what he's saying.
Right.
At some point, y'all gonna have to start to listen, reading between the lines.
Stop.
You know what reading the, I'm sorry, bro. You know what reading the tea leaves mean? It don't mean actually reading exactly what is being said, but reading the message that's underlining. So if we call ourselves intellectuals, being able to understand, extrapolate information, I think you need to understand that although his delivery is all the way off.
What he's saying.
Exactly. Say it one more time. for
What he's
people.
saying, there's substance to what Kanye is saying. Y'all don't like how he's saying it. And because he's saying it the way that he's saying it, you reacting first.
Oh, he crazy.
Oh my
he
God,
crazy. Lock him
he
up.
said that,
Put him
oh
up.
my God.
Lock him up.
But if you actually stop and listen to what he's saying, it makes sense.
And exactly, and this is still on the subject because Kanye West is a black man, whether rich or not,
From Chicago.
from Chicago. So we're still on the subject. But what he meant by the abolishment of the 13th Amendment is, most people say, oh, well, he's saying he want to bring back slavery. On the contrary, the reason why you're able to get locked up for having something inside of your car, I'm not going to say what it is, I'm just going to say something inside of your cars,
Right.
is because it is actually legal for slavery to be in effect if you are prosecuted and sent to some type of correctional facility. So, do you know what the abolishment of the 13th Amendment would do? It will recorrect and basically wipe away the private prison system.
Which is essentially what he wanted to speak to Donald Trump about.
Exactamundo.
It's
So,
just that he
he ain't saying.
Can't say.
I told Kanye, bro, I'm in Chicago right now. I don't know how long I'm gonna be here. Hit me up, call me, so we can we can wrap a taste.
Right.
Tell me so then I can tell them and make it make sense.
Exactly.
Right.
I can give you a matter of fact. Sing Chicago. Shout out to Sing Chicago. I did a nice piece about a week. Thanks. I appreciate it. About Kanye West, your energy, and I actually defended you. I said, man, Kanye West is not mentally ill. It's his astrology and zodiac energy. So one thing you need to do, Kanye West, I hope you're doing it. You got the ability and the money in order to find out. Start to understand your actual energy from a spiritual and physiological as well as energetic level.
Now, I will have to say that you also, that's a very good piece that you did right there, but you also have to say that not a lot of people are going to keep that. It's almost like you're kind of giving him a way out.
Well,
To understand
and what I would say to those people, how do I give somebody a way out when I'm actually speaking the truth?
Well, always remember, y'all, all the listeners didn't get a chance to read the article yet, so give them a little snapshot.
Okay,
If
so
y'all discuss it, just give them a snapshot.
what I want you to do is go to Donte Chase Bridges on Facebook, or you can go to Sing Chicago Magazine. Once again, that's Sing Chicago Magazine, and look up Kanye West is not mentally ill. It's his zodiac energy. And I want you to read that article and understand. I don't talk about this a lot, but I am a relationship astrologist. So the one thing that I do is I look at energy all day. And I read the combinations of different energies affected by the planets and stars. So what I did was break down exactly why Kanye delivery is the way it is, because of his Gemini sun and his Pisces moon. And plus they do something that we call squaring, which means they're in conflict with one another, which will cause them not to be able to deliver information the way you might want them to, but still have some valiant points. So I want y'all to look at that, I want y'all to read it, and then I want y'all to come back because I got a couple of more questions for my panel. Y'all ready for this?
We ready?
All right. Now, we talked about a little bit. As a matter of fact, did we get into the drive?
We did.
We was about to get into
did.
it. We
and
got
I
a-
had-
we got a
and I had
question.
a comment, but that's perfect because the comment actually ties directly into that. The comment that I got, I have a friend online and he says, quote, "I'm a lead employment placement specialist for CAPS
Okay.
over the city and suburbs. And Kim, you are spot on. You have to want it. And I'm going to use that as my key to go in with this drive. Are the opportunities abundant? No, but they're there. And people have to want it. Now, I think that there's another level to having that lack of motivation and that lack of drive, being that if you're not happy in your environment, if you feel no motivation, no purpose in your environment, then it's gonna be hard to feel motivated to get out of it. But at some point, you have to be unhappy enough where you are to be like, something has to change. So I can't keep putting this stuff on the system because at some point, you gotta make a decision and say, nope, I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna play into the system. I'm not going to play that role.
CDP, how you feel about that, brother?
I will respond to that because I have a question. I know that you're the host of the show, but I have a question I have to ask for you. What is exactly stopping, not just black men, but like black people in general, African American men and women, what is stopping us from creating our own job market?
That's an excellent point.
What is really stopping us from creating our
That's
own
an
job
excellent
True
market?
unity.
It's a good question. It's a good one.
Let's give it to Kim Brio real quick.
True unity. I
True
think
unity.
that if we're gonna talk about it and be for real about it, there are some things that we as a group, black people should do, but we don't do because we can't get along with each other long enough to do it, and that's systematic as well.
Because how
Not
many
to bring up the Willie Lynch letter, but that's systematic as well.
Because how many times you gonna hear somebody say support your own black-owned business and then you don't do it? It's like, well, then how is the black-owned business gonna survive? How are we gonna strive if you don't support it? Now, I understand that there's some faults behind it. A lot of people complain about customer service, but still, it's a start.
Let me ask you a question, CDP, real quick, and I'm gonna bounce it right to you. So, why do you think customer service is so bad in the black community?
Because people don't know how to know how to run a business professionally.
Okay, I gotta ask you a follow-up question.
Okay.
Why do you feel people don't know how to run a business?
Because they're not educated enough to understand how to do it.
Why aren't people educated?
Because the system will not allow them to be educated properly.
For everybody that's tuning in, this is called the rabbit hole effect. We're going to dive so deep that we're actually going to hit the root cause of this.
I don't like that.
You don't like this?
I don't like what he said. He said allow, system won't allow them.
Okay, so you said the system won't allow, where we get to the educational part of this?
Yeah.
So why won't the system allow them at the educational part?
Because, as we said, classism is a certain level of education you're allowed to have.
And what is it about classism that the higher ups is not allowing the workers to actually, let's not say go ahead, one step ahead, but let's just say to branch off and do their own thing? Why won't, I'm sorry, but let me just say this. Why won't classism allow for the African American male to do this?
Because we've already tried to do that once before, and look how powerful that became.
But
Remember-
why?
Because prime example, Black Wall Street. Remember that? Black Wall Street was actually one of the golden gooses of black communities.
Right.
Where we actually created our own market. We actually created our own job. They saw how that would happen.
Show enough.
It's a rivaling of power almost. It's basically what it is, a rivaling of power.
Right.
Because when black people have their own system and how they way to govern themselves and how they can make their own money and create their own system of education, that poses a threat to current societal standards.
So you feel that because there is a threat to the economic stability and abilities, because like they say, the U.S. Census is wrong about the count of African Americans inside the United States is far more. And if you actually knew the actual numbers, you would be like, why are we letting people call us a minority? There's no reason.
Well, is it really a threat to economic stability? I thought it would probably help economic stability.
Brother, I'm setting you up. I'm on your side.
Oh, I was saying,
I'm setting you up. I'm going in gusto with you.
okay. So like,
You can backhand me across the face, and now I'm trying to get in.
all right, well, go ahead and get in with me, brother.
All right, so because it's about economic stability. So if black people create their own economic stability, and we are a large amount of the United States, not to mention United States, but Central America, because when you say the term black, one thing we do is we just get caught up in North America. But there are black people in Central America. There are black people in South America. There's more than one America people. It's 3 of them. So if we take away all of the quote unquote blacks in the economic society, what would happen to the higher ups?
Repeat that question one time.
If we take away all the black people's economic stability, meaning we take away all the black people's resources, all the black people's money, all the black people's trades that they can trade in order to get resources, what will happen to that main society?
Complete and utter collapse.
All right.
That's
So
basically what it is. Complete and utter
I
collapse.
said all of that to swing it right to the right
All
to
right.
Miss Cambrio.
Okay.
Now,
I've been writing notes.
You've been right. Oh my
Mhm.
God, she is back in the
You
11th
already
grade.
know.
Right. She comes prepared.
This is the science fair. This is, you remember the science fair when you
Yeah.
were sitting up there and the electrons will, you remember that? Okay, anyway. So
I want to build a volcano.
you did take the easy way.
I
out
wanted to build a
volcanoes.
volcano.
You clay, baking soda, and vinegar type of human.
But it was dope though.
It was not dope.
It was not.
It was 17 volcanoes.
It was
Back then it was dope.
It was only
Nowadays,
22
17
people.
I was just about to say it was 17
It was-
volcanoes and 20 people in the class.
Oh, really?
back then it was dope.
It was 19 people in
You
your
know what's
sixth grade
now?
class.
I would say I bet you your science fair is more about a PowerPoint presentation now.
Probably
Yeah,
is.
yeah, it probably
Probably
is.
is.
It probably is.
Create your business plan.
Let me ask you a question.
Mhm.
Could I hit her with some knowledge real quick?
Hit it with
No,
some
no,
knowledge.
no, I'll take that back, because she probably gonna smack me upside the head with
Yeah.
knowledge. So let's get back onto this drive situation. So with what City P has just stated about the majority or the powers to be are just so scared that these black people will get their own economic footing, and that will cause complete economic collapse overall in the United States. So they have, and I'm just, piggybacking off what you're saying, but I think, correct me if I'm wrong. So, if they're that scared, I'm pretty sure somebody scared is going to do some offensive tactics in order to make sure that doesn't happen, right? Because if I'm scared of somebody,
Yeah.
I'm gonna go learn kung fu. I'm gonna let my uncle teach me how to box.
They already did.
Okay, so
Been done.
offensive tactics is what the hires to be are doing. So, tell me this: when does drive stop in a onslaught of the powers to be that is causing you to be in the same place you are? Because black people are not here because of lack of energy, lack of motivation. If you look at these streets right now and you don't take it from a criminal level, but just take it from a resource level, we got some of the biggest entrepreneurs inside of these streets. If you can deal a kilo of cocaine, you can be a Fortune 500 exec.
I was gonna say
Same
that
mentality.
earlier when you said that they don't know how to start their own. They know how to start their own.
They
just
did
made,
start
they
their
just
own.
made what we start on our own illegal.
Right.
Exactly. So this is where I challenge you: drive.
Okay.
Because you see drive
Mhm.
in the African American community.
Mhm.
May not be legal drive all the time,
Mhm.
but you see it. And
Mhm.
also you're dealing with the government
Mhm.
giving offensive tactics in order to
Mhm.
stop the drive right in its tracks.
Okay.
How can black men combat that? Or you just give me some brief understandings
Okay.
about how you feel about the situation.
Okay, I wrote this down a minute ago. Don't laugh at me. But
You know what, before
but
we,
here's-
I'm
okay,
sorry,
you
I'm
know
sorry,
what?
we went a little too long. We're gonna take a quick break, and when we come back, Kim Brio is gonna slap me upside the head with the truth. Pow! This is
Oh,
Real
it's
Talk
funny.
with Donte Chase Bridges on UBM. See you in a minute.
UBM Radio.
I wasn't looking at the time.
No, you're fine.
Yeah, we got hit, but we going straight in with you.
That's cool.
Take as long as you want.
You don't usually get a stop to from the 16.
I'm gonna have you
but I'm here to
talk
tell you
with
about
me,
a
but
different kind
yeah,
of stop. It's
um,
called Better
You want me to
Futures.
talk with you?
A
well,
stop for social
I'm
change.
probably
that's not about
gonna have some
making
questions for you guys
Instead,
during my
we
statement.
invest to help students like me go to
Alright,
college.
so the last question.
This is beyond
that,
a simple donation.
we're gonna end it
It's
out
the
with this.
opportunity for America to invest in its kids and take an active stake in the future of the
We're gonna get
country.
into some solutions.
The return on your investment isn't money.
Think about
What you get back is knowing we protected our potential. So one day, that potential can grow up to become surgeons and architects, executives and engineers, people who can change the future just by being a part of it.
Well,
My name is Alicia,
Comment.
and I'm your
I read
dividend.
comment. It said what?
She said it's misdirected drive. Somehow we have accepted that the only thing we can do is push weight, make beats, and play sports. Academic intelligence is not as celebrated as it should. It's drive, she right.
Peekaboo. Peekaboo. Smile.
Yeah, I'm going to say that. That's okay.
Oh, honey,
If that's the
he's
case.
still not smiling.
Maybe he's not a smiler.
What's up, you got?
Yeah,
anything you want?
maybe he's just
So
not
what?
a happy baby.
Maybe he's just
Because
being
out there,
You know how boys
she's
are.
gonna go.
Or maybe he's teething.
Oh,
That bad.
No, because maybe he's just tired
Okay.
too.
Or maybe his tummy hurts. He didn't eat that much.
Maybe he's not ticklish.
Okay.
I think maybe he's.
I'm getting observed now because I want to hear what's going to say. I need
Maybe it's a
well,
phase.
when we get to the
Maybe he
solution
just
part,
doesn't like smiling.
Maybe
So I just wanna let you know.
he has autism, and we can definitely do something to help.
Maybe.
You be getting the eyes from both sides, like all.
I ain't scared.
Like what's wrong?
Learn the essence of autismspeaks.org.
He gonna let you go uncomfortably. What?
Lifetime
I'm just messing with you.
of difference.
That's my coping mechanism.
I don't got OCD. This I don't know why.
What is going on out there, the city of Chicago? It is 51 minutes past the hour, and you are tuned in to Real Talk with Donte Chase Bridges. Man, I cut Cambria off, and she was about to bring the thunder.
How
But
dare
that's
you.
why I know.
How dare you?
That's why
That's what black women gotta deal with all the time. They don't never wanna hear what we gotta say.
the suffrage.
It's
I'm sorry.
kind of. What?
He said it's kind of true. It's fully true, but that's
It's
another
kinda.
entire episode.
Well, what I think we're gonna do, we're gonna open up this panel for Cambria to express everything she's feeling.
Okay, so this is really kind of what was really coming to my head as we were doing all this talking. It's like, if you have melanin in your skin, you're going to have to fight the system at some point in your life. Period, point blank. I am personally at a point where I am very tired of black people using the system as an excuse. I think there's a difference between understanding what the system is doing and being able to have that knowledge and move accordingly, because like, okay, if you know that game plan, it's a little easier to kind of shift around, but it's never going to be easy. And I think that we black people, we sit and we keep waiting for it to be easy. We keep waiting for it to be like handed to us like other situations. Yes, it's not. If you have melanin in your skin, I don't care if you are a man or a woman, I don't care if it's education, I don't care if it's class, I don't care what it is, you are going to have to fight the system at some point in your life.
So you telling me you feel that black men are making nothing but excuses of it?
I ain't say nothing but excuses, but at what point are you gonna say, okay, the system did this, got it, this is what the system did, I know that, I'm equipped with that, what am I going to do to step out of this situation and solve my problem?
So, speaking on, cause you had a comment from one of your followers that said that this is not a matter of drive, but just misdirected drive.
It was key because listening to what we were saying, I was saying they need drive, and you were saying, you know, well, they got drive, they doing all of this stuff, and I'm gonna read our comment. It says, it is misdirected drive. Somehow we have accepted that the only thing we can do is push weight, make beats, and play sports. Academic intelligence is not as celebrated as it should be. And I agree with that, and I think that before, deeper than that, even if we don't just put it on academic or sports or this or that, I think that we have to have drive in a more moral direction. And I think that that's part of where it's the older generation's place to step down and put our hand into the community of these younger people and tell, because a lot of times all they need is a conversation.
Right. Can I tell you a little story?
Tell me a story.
Story time with Donte Chase Bridges.
All right.
We need theme music.
Yeah,
I need some water.
we need riffs. Go ahead out there.
It's okay.
Yeah,
Go
take
ahead.
that
There you go.
water.
It ain't been open.
Cause it's
Is it
going
open?
It has not been open.
Are you sure?
There you go.
Sitting
Okay,
here.
there you go.
All right. Story time. Go.
Insulin is not right. Okay, here we go. Now, me, I am Donte. I went to
No.
Chaz, and I had to deal with rapscallions like this, hating on me. I'm like, no, that's another name. Listen, I went to CHAS, Chicago High School of Agricultural Science, and that was considered one of the top high schools in the city of Chicago. I was also given a scholarship to attend University of Minnesota, where I majored in agriculture. Yeah, agriculture, right? So, didn't work out at University of Minnesota, so I attended Olive Harvey College, where I got my associate's degree. Then I transferred to Chicago State University, where I received a Bachelor's of Science in Communications, Afro-American Studies, and Health Sciences. I am now currently at the doctoral level of education. And you know why I said all that? The educational system that I was fortunate enough to be inside of didn't do me a damn favor whatsoever. So listen,
At all.
I want you to understand this, and I'm going to actually agree with Stephen a little bit about this. We put so many emphasis on education that we miss exactly why are we getting the education in the first place. See, the reason why you're getting education is to better yourself, to be at a level where you can succeed in this economic society. But I want to let you know a little quote from Krishnamurti. Okay, I want y'all to look up Krishnamurti. He said that it is no measure of health to integrate yourself inside of a sick society. Now, there are 3 modules that I believe that is important for you to live: education, business, and health. Whether you're indoctrinating yourself, not educating, but indoctrinating yourself into the education society, trying to get all these doctoral, bachelor's, master's, and at this point, I probably got more degrees than a thermometer. It doesn't matter how many degrees you have, because the actual corporate system that was set up will not allow an African American man to go that route. So the reason why I said that is because of what she said. I am credentialed, and if my name was a blank name, Tom Peters, I would consider myself highly qualified to get managerial or executive level jobs. But I have the experience being an African American male, both from high education and from West Pool in Chicago, Southside Wild Hundreds, to understand that it is not about drive. It is not about initiative. A lot of times, African Americans are getting smacked right in the face and told, you have a position where we want you in, and we've been tutoring you to be in this since you was the age of 6 years old. And what we tend to do is we tend to do cognitive dissonance all the time. We do it in relationships. If the man ain't providing, then the woman say the man's a deadbeat. There's an inverse. Inverse meaning if this is up here, this should be down here. We do it all the time. So this drive, I have the drive. But at some point we have to understand it's not about pulling yourself up out of bootstraps, because you are the boots that this world is wearing, okay? I agree with you more, because it's not about going to get an education, because I have an education, and the only thing I have for it is a lot of student loans. Okay, if y'all want to help me pay for it, y'all will see what I mean.
That's another systemic reason.
I can transfer something to you.
I don't got my own.
Another systemic.
Systemic,
fallback.
and when we say systemic, it's starting to sound like a buzzword or a talking point. But when systemically is being brought up, we're saying that the government is causing for African American men not to be on the same playing level as, let's not even bring up Caucasians, but not even our black women. The African American community is in a state of cognitive dissonance, because you see that we are going through this struggle, and the only thing that you have to show for it, or the only thing that you will say is, pull yourself up out of bootstraps, or why can't you do what I'm doing? I'll tell you one of the reasons, and I don't care if you say that this is an excuse, because there's a thin line between excuses and reasons. How am I going to pull you up? Meaning, how am I, because energetically I'm supposed to be the male leader, how am I going to pull you up when I have a system that has 6 hands around my neck at the same time? How does that play into real life, correlate? That program that you went into when you was in high school that gave you that scholarship is not for me. That man got kicked out of that household because that woman wasn't able to receive food stamps with him being inside of that, which caused instability inside of his life. That man is portrayed inside of the media vastly as being a deadbeat, not being able to support his children, where statistics show that this is not true. So you have media propaganda, you have corporate higher ups, and this is going to wrinkle some feathers here. You even have the black women becoming the enemy of the black man by using cognitive dissonance. Because you tell us to pull ourselves up by the bootstraps, and yet you don't see how we getting kicked in the back of the head at the same time. And not only do you not see it, you are putting that 6-inch stiletto heel in the back of our necks. So you are telling us not to be a victim of the corporate or higher up to be. The higher ups to be that's causing this is telling us not to be a victim, and nobody is actually seeing that the reality of the situation is, in order to make money, you need an outlet. And the outlets are dried up for African American men in the Chicago community as well as the United States, but they is not dried up for the African American women. And this is not about my opinion, because statistics show, matter of fact, it was an article in the Chicago Tribune. 1 out of every 5 African American males in the city of Chicago is unemployed. That's 20%. When you hit 10%, that's economic collapse for any ethnicity. Between the ages of 20 to 24, you're dealing with more than 60% of African American males not being in college or not being employed. That is far more than economic collapse. That's racial apartheid like they had in South Africa. This is not things that we just ramble off. These are not excuses. These are reasons. And what I will tell you is, and I have heard this from many of my African American men, that if the African American woman can't see that there is so much racial onslaught on us, whether it be police brutality, the education system, the health system, which uses us as guinea pigs. I was in medical school. I know how they treat black people when you go into a hospital. If the black woman can't see that, then at some point, are you really our friend or are you really our enemy?
Let me ask you a question. We see it. I see everything you said.
Right.
What we gonna do about it?
I will tell you.
That's the
I will
difference.
tell you.
Hold on, please, because you done went for 3. You done knocked the black woman off the pedestal. You done said black women don't support black men at all. And listen, you gonna have to allow me to respond. Listen, the reality of the situation is you can see it. We see the same things. I know the same statistics that you know.
Right.
Okay. At what point are we gonna stop studying the statistics and start doing something about it? Because my problem with the situation is that we're consistently talking about why we're in this situation. When we get stuck in a place of why we're not moving forward.
I'm going to give you a solution right now. And this is for all my African American men. And we're going to come to you in a minute. Okay. Malcolm X was not wrong with what he said. Do you know what one of the main things that Malcolm X preached?
By any means necessary.
True. But the root of it was separation. Martin Luther King preached integration. You want to know why the powers to be wanted us to integrate? The same reason why they burned down Black Wall Street. Because they knew that the black men were powerhouses. I'm sorry, okay. They knew that the black men were powerhouses inside of the community. And they knew that if they didn't integrate with them, that their economic appreciation will go up while the powers to be will go down. So they needed them. Separating will cause us to fend for ourselves, have our own communities, whether it be real estate, grocery stores, all those type of things, work together and be a community of African American men. Then it will trickle down to our African American women. Because right now, I think we need to separate, not physically, but as far as mentally from the African American woman, so we can get ourselves together, so then we can present ourselves back to you. Stephen P., what you think about that?
All right, quick questions I have to ask you. So, if you give me a rough guess, how many, what's the number of, if you compare between black men and black women, more likely, which gender is more likely to be in the corporate world from a college education?
African American women.
Now, who's more likely to have an occupation of entrepreneurship in the black community?
African American men.
So you see already the difference now.
See, but I disagree with that wave.
You
That's
do
only
disagree.
because I'm in the wave. I'm in the wave in a different place.
State your reason why.
I'm in the wave in a different place, and I'm in the wave in a different place because I'm literally watching my black millennial women start businesses and brands on their own. Mm-hmm. Your brand is your business. Right. So when you see that young lady and she got a website and she's literally selling nothing but herself and her knowledge, that's still a business. You understand what I'm saying?
Let me ask you a question.
So I hate to
break in on you, but I got to bring you down to the rabbit hole. Okay. So where did she learn how to do the graphic design and the branding content in order for her to make herself an entrepreneur?
At school.
What did she get in order to go to school? Because you can't go to school for free 7 times out of 10.
Okay, I'm gonna speak for myself because we're gonna call it what it is.
Now there are aberrations to the rule.
Right.
So
No,
we're
but
talking about
I'm
as a
gonna
whole.
but I'm gonna use this as an example though, and I'm gonna tell you why. All the skills that I learned that made me an entrepreneur were not post-secondary. They were all elementary, and they were those same
And we're gonna get to that.
situations
We're gonna get
that
to
the
that.
young men that I went to school with could have taken advantage of as well and chose not to.
Now I'm gonna have to call the timeout. Because exactly what I said in the beginning was the programs are not afforded to the African American males. And even if they are, you have situations dealing with the streets because you're talking about male leadership. And you're talking about a system that has systematically said that the males cannot be inside of this system by having the drug epidemic, dropping off carts of guns inside of the community so that the African American males can kill themselves off. This is not opinions. This is not my factual opinions. This is actual facts. So you are not getting the cognitive dissonance that's coming in that. Although you see it, although you understand it, although you know it, when it comes on an applicable level, you don't grasp it. And I'm not speaking for Kim Brill.
Yeah.
I'm speaking for the African American woman that doesn't understand the true plight of the African American black
I
man.
don't think that is that we don't get it. I think with all due respect, we just agree to disagree.
Disagree. Well, let me.
Like, you know what I'm saying? I hate to say it
Steven
like
over
that,
here,
but-
basting like a Thanksgiving
Yeah, I'm
turkey.
just sitting there looking at y'all. Y'all going
Yeah.
toe to toe, blow for blow.
How
Go
do
ahead.
you feel about this?
How you feel?
But you know what? You have said a lot of things that I've said to this young man for a long time. Sometimes stats can tell you one story, but where's the substance behind it?
Well, stats can be skewed. We know
Stats
that.
can be skewed, but we need substance behind it. It's always about whether or not we know the statistics, but what is the solution? What are we going to do
CDP,
about
give
it?
me one good solution.
As I stated before, we need to start our own black job market. We need to start sustaining ourselves in the worst way. We've proven that we've done it before. We can do it again. It's not, but except this time we're a lot smarter. This generation's a lot smarter than it was before.
And more equipped.
We have more resources at our disposal. We have more technological advances that can make it easier.
Yeah.
So exactly what is stopping us other than drive?
Like unity and drive.
And drive.
You know what we gonna need? We gonna need a part 2 for this.
We are.
Because
Yeah.
what I hate to tell y'all, but we are running out of time. Kim Brill, I just want you to give your information, let the people know who you are.
Kim Brill, guys, entrepreneur extraordinaire. I will do your website and I will brand your company, kimbrio.com, KIMBRIO.com.
Hit it with the fan one more time.
Pass!
Stephen City P. Watson, tell the people who you are.
City P, one half of the Brothers Podcast. You can catch us every Thursday between 7 to 8 o'clock on Facebook Live, on Anchor app. That's what we do here.
I am Donte Chase Bridges of Real Talk with Donte Chase Bridges, and we want you to understand. Tune in next week, as this might be a part 2. Until then, peace.
Oh, leg that hurts. Ah.
Oh, wait.
All right.
Can y'all tell people where to find you?
You can find me at Donte Chase Bridges on Facebook. Also, chase your zodiac health and wellness. I am a relationship astrologist. You can catch me. You can email me at DonteChaseBridges1@gmail.com. Once again, that's DonteChaseBridges1@gmail.com. Or you can catch the Brothers Podcast
Every Thursday,
Every
between 7 and 8
Thursday.
o'clock.
and you can catch that on Facebook and on YouTube.
And Anchor app as well.
Anchor app.
Anchor app or any local podcast that you listen to.
Also, you can catch my articles in the Huffington Post and also Scene magazine. And that's it for now.
Sure. You got anything else you want to catch you, man?
Also, you can catch me at Harold's Chicken because I'm a little hungry. If you
can
get
catch
to
him-
127.
Catch them on Spotify. You can catch them on POF.
What about you? Where
catch-
can we catch you?
You can catch you on POF. As I said, I am a Scorpio.
On
You can catch
Bumble?
me- You can catch me on Hinge. You can catch me on Black People Meet. Nah, not really.
You know
not Black
what?
People
This is
Meet.
not about
wait.
to be a matchmaker.
And if you
try-
try,
That's- it's
and
not
ladies,
gonna
I love y'all.
Catch
If
me
you try
on
to catch me in the
Instagram.
street,
Follow me on Instagram. City
ladies,
P.
you might catch these hands.
City P. Catch me on
I'll
Instagram.
call you, okay?
Twitter. City
Don't
P
be-
Hustle. Catch me on that. Facebook, Steven Six, if you watching, holler at me.
The jackets, guys, by the way, marklordapparel.com, marklordapparel, those are the jacket guys. Thank you.